Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 4, verse number 52. Chapter entitled Prescribed Duties for Mankind. Okay, so I'll just read through the Sanskrit. Mituna vyavaya dharmas. Whoa, okay. Sorry, there's a previous verse with no purport. So I'll just read that one quickly. Okay. Esa pankanchanasyanga duhita vai prajapate asikni nama patnitve prajesha patigriyatam. Translation. Oh, my dear son, Daksha, Prajapati Pankajana has a daughter named Asikni, whom I offer to you so that you may accept her as your wife. Okay. Today's text. Mitunavya vaya dharmastam prajasagam imapuna mitunavya vaya dharminyam purishopa vasvisyasi. Okay, word for word, please repeat. Mituna, of a man and woman. Vyavaya, sexual activities. Dharma, who accepts by religious performance. Tvam, you. Raja Sargam, creation of living entities. Imam, this. Guna, again. Mituna, of man and woman united. Vyavaya Dharminyam, in her according to the religious performance of sexual intercourse. Religious performance of sexual intercourse. Buddhisa, manifold. Bhava yisyasi, you will be the cause, you will cause to be. Translation. Now unite in sexual life as man and woman. And in this way, by sexual intercourse, you will be able to beget hundreds of children in the womb of this girl to increase the population. Okay, word. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 7:11, Dharma vuredu bhuteshu kamosmi. Quote, I am sex that is not contrary to religious principles. End quote. Sexual intercourse ordained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is dharma, a religious principle, but it is not intended for sense enjoyment. Indulgence in sense enjoyment through sexual intercourse is not allowed by the Vedic principles. One may follow the natural tendency for sex life only to beget children. Therefore, the Lord told Daksha in this verse, this girl is offered to you only for sex life to beget children, not for any other purpose. She is very fertile, and therefore you will be able to have as many children as you can beget. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks in this connection that Daksha was given the facility for unlimited sexual intercourse. In Daksha's previous life, he was also known as Daksha. But in the course of performing sacrifices, he offended Lord Shiva and thus his head was replaced with that of a goat. Then Daksha gave up his life because of his degraded condition, but because he maintained the same unlimited sexual desires, he underwent austerities by which he satisfied the Supreme Lord, who then gave him unlimited potency for sexual intercourse. It should be noted that although such a facility for sexual intercourse is achieved by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this facility is not offered to advanced devotees who are freed from material desires. In this connection, it may be noted that if the American boys and girls engaged in the Krishna consciousness movement want to advance in Krishna consciousness to achieve the supreme benefit of loving service to the Lord, they should refrain from indulgence in this facility for sex life. Therefore, we advise that one should at least refrain from illicit sex. Even if there are opportunities for sex life, one should voluntarily accept the limitation of having sex only for progeny, not for any other purpose. Kardama Muni was also given the facility for sex life, but he had only a slight desire for it. Therefore, after begetting children in the womb of Devahuti, Kardama Muni became completely renounced. The purport is that if one wants to return home back to Godhead, one should voluntarily refrain from sex life. Sex should be accepted only as much as needed, not unlimitedly. One should not think that Daksha received the favor of the Lord by receiving the facilities for unlimited sex. Later verses will reveal that Daksha again committed an offense, this time at the lotus feet of Narada. Therefore, although sex life is the topmost enjoyment in the material world, and although one may have an opportunity for sexual enjoyment by the grace of God, this entails a risk of committing offenses. Daksha was open to such offenses, and therefore, strictly speaking, he was not actually favored by the Supreme Lord. One should not seek the favor of the Lord for unlimited potency in sex life. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshu Anmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Pada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sakachatan Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you, Bruce, for coming. We also have usually we only have people on Zoom, but in-person people are also welcome. My name is Dasi Premdas. I've been here about almost 5 years now. And before this, I was traveling book distributor brahmachari, and then somehow now living on a farm, and done many services here, but recently been doing gardening and getting into the more agricultural aspects of Prabhupada's mission. I'm happy to hear about your Prabhu's endeavors in that regard, and I hope you can get some new tips and tricks and share your experiences while you're here also. Okay. So, okay. So I wonder what I'm going to talk about now. Well, I'm going to talk about sex. Yeah, so this idea of, this idea of sex, probably most of us didn't realize, at least coming, from Western backgrounds, didn't realize that a spiritual life would also mean, so many prohibitions, and what to speak of, this one, which is, such a big part of life, and life is this is sex, that most of us didn't think we'd have to prohibit this as a part of spiritual life. But then very quickly after we come in contact with Krishna consciousness, we hear so many injunctions telling us about the problems of this sex life. So many purports, so many verses talk about how detrimental sex life is to our spiritual life. So Prabhupada says in one purport, conceding to a life of sex, one agrees to experience all types of miseries. Actually, I was traveling with a devotee. We were both brahmacharis at the time, and he heard our Guru Maharaj say that. So he got tattooed right here. He got a warning sign. It's like, a warning, like triangle with a red around it. And then this quote, conceding to a life of sex, one agrees to experience all types of miseries. So, and also, there's so many stories like this, for example, Lord Rishabdev even says that in regard to attaining liberation, one should not even associate with people fond of women and sex. So not only should you not engage in the activity, but you shouldn't even associate with people who are interested in that activity. Then we hear some very intense stories, like in Mahaprabhu's Leela. We hear how Chota Haridas went to the house of a, even an elderly woman, and was begging for some rice. And because of this, Lord Chaitanya, banished him from his association. So showing the severity of kind of this, even the slight, movement in that direction. Of course, I think Chota Haridas was a renunciate, so he was showing that, especially for those in the renounced order, this is unacceptable. So many places, yes, we hear this. Even Prabhupada says, in one quote, he said, sex impulse ruins the whole character. And we know that, yes, there, in the traditional Varnashram Dharma system, there's, for the ashrams, there's 4 ashrams. 3 of those ashrams, in 3 of those ashrams, it doesn't allow for any sex. Brahmachari, no sex. Then in 1, you're allowed sex, but in a very regulated manner. So in this way, that also tells the severity. In 3 of the 4 ashrams, it's completely prohibited. And actually the whole ashram system is meant to, ultimately purify us from this. Even if one is engaged as a grihastha, it's done in a regulated way, and ultimately the system is meant to get free from it. So, yes, there are so many warnings about the dangers of this sex life. So, why is this? Why is this sex life so detrimental? And why would we be implored to give it up individually and also as a society? Well, if we just think about all the problems in the world today that are caused by this sex, it's quite overwhelming. Think about all the rape and unfortunate instances of children being exposed to that, to kind of improper sexual activity. All the problems, like I heard most times when police get called to houses, it's actually for domestic disputes. So there's some problem with the couples. So this, and we can see, yes, so many problems in the world are caused by this insatiable desire for sex. People killing each other over, somebody taking another person's husband or wife, like that. So it's quite a bad thing. Despite, if you go on the internet, I was shocked. I went on the internet just now. I typed in the dangers of sex life, and all you see is all these health benefits, and it's good to have sex twice a week, and so yeah, it's crazy because we hear, like, His Holiness Dhanavir Maharaj wrote a book called brain gain, and we know that when the semen flows upwards, urdhva reta, then it actually nourishes the finer brain chemicals, brain substances. But when it goes down, then one loses it. And even athletes are told, like boxers, they're told, before a fight, you shouldn't engage in this activity for like a few days before, because they know it's gonna drain one's vitality. So, well, one time this devotee was telling me how he like moved. He wasn't a very strong devotee, but he moved to some place to preach where there was no devotees, and he was all alone and kind of started, because he was all alone, he was trying to preach, but got in with some bad association, and anyways, he ended up going to a wedding. One thing led to another, and he ended up like engaging in some sexual activity with someone. And he said that it was like after he engaged in this activity, then it opened up the doors for breaking all the other regs. It was like because he had engaged in this severe activity, then all the other ones just seemed like not so bad, They were saying, like, in that same night, he started smoking. He was smoking cigarettes, drinking, eating meat, like everything. And his point, and I believe there's a verse somewhere talks about, yes, how sex life is the gateway to breaking all the other regulative principles. So yeah, he was very. Anyways, it was a interesting testimony about how detrimental it is. And ultimately, yeah, it clouds one's intelligence and makes one aspire for materialistic things. So, like I was saying, for the men, when they lose the semen, then it prevents it from going up and nourishing the finer, the brain substances. And so one's intelligence is ultimately clouded, and one's not able to have the sharp intelligence required to fight against Maya. And it, like I was trying to illustrate in the story, it increases one's propensity for materialistic things. So yes, as spiritualists, so much of our life is about having a clear consciousness, having a pure consciousness, living in the mode of goodness, having, not being so pulled by our material senses. So then if one engages in these activities of over sex indulgence, then it's completely contrary to what we're aiming for. So I remember, when I first read, not first read, but I read a Back to Godhead magazine, and in there, the article was about the dangers of sex life. And in there, the author was making the point that just think about having to take another birth. Okay, we know that this sex indulgence is, hampering for our spiritual life. So, okay, if one wants to now engage in sexual life, think about the consequences. So the point was being made. Okay, so you had your little, moment of enjoyment, moments, or, just engaging in that activity too much. Okay, so now what's going to happen? Now you're going to have to take another birth and think about what comes with that. Think about having to go through puberty again. Think of having to go through your, first days of school, going through elementary school, middle school, high school, all the awkwardness of your first prom and having to study so much. And now think about, not having to do all that over again. The awkwardness of going through puberty. So when I read this, I was like, wow, I don't really want to go through all this again. And that was the point, was that just for a little sex life, now one is increasing one's chances of having to now go through all this again. And yes, unfortunately, we've seen many people give up the path for this. There one devotee we were traveling with, he started getting off the path, and then what happened? He fell in love with some Chinese or Japanese girl, and then some traveler, and then she left and went and started traveling, and he was so in love with her that he began to literally traveling the world in search for her. So his whole life became just a mission to get this girl. So it's amazing, yes, what this force will do. So, yeah, so how do we get free from it? Oh, and I remember one time on Sankirtan, we met this guy, and I think we'd just been reading about how like sex life is dangerous and all that. And then we met this guy who was saying that he had a bad heart, and his wife wanted to engage in sex, and then he said she almost killed him because like he almost had a heart attack by engaging in sex. So anyways, it was interesting how like we were just been reading about it, and then we got like this guy telling a testimony how literally the activity almost killed him. Okay, so how to get free from this? How to get free from this problem? So, of course, the whole bhakti process is gearing us toward getting free from this disease. Yeah, because ultimately, that if we are still attracted, we can take that as a barometer that okay, the more I'm attracted, to the degree that I'm still attracted to the sex life, means to that degree I'm not strong in my spiritual life. So we can act, yeah. So the more and then conversely, the more we advance, the more we can get free from it. So that there's this famous quote by Yamunacharya. He says, "Since I've become attracted by the beauty of Radha and Krishna, when I think of the memory of sex with a woman, I spit on it and my face turns in disgust." So this is an example of someone who's reached such a high level of spiritual advancement that, instead of driving him mad and making him run towards it like crazy, like everyone is, he actually was spitting at the thought, like completely disgusted. And actually it is, yeah, it is a very disgusting act if you think about it. Like if you see, even like, I remember I saw some peacocks like just, get it on real quick. And I was like, oh my God, that's so gross, Like, can you guys have a little bit of like, get this like go ever behind the barn or something? It's a very disgusting act to think of those organs getting together and all that. But by the trick of Maya, when it comes to like the human form, oh, then we're so attracted to it. Then it's like, yeah. So it's really a influence. It's a trick of illusion. Just like, when we see a poodle on the street, we're not attracted by this poodle, but another dog sees this poodle. This poodle just went to the what do they call a person that cuts the poodle's hairs? A groom? Is there? A groom, yeah. When the poodle goes to the groom, gets a nice, nice new hairstyle, and then the dog is attracted to it. But for us, yeah, there's no attraction for it. So it shows how Maya influences certain species to be attracted. So there actually is no beauty in it. And there's this famous play that sometimes devotees do with the liquid beauty, and everyone's probably heard of the liquid beauty, yeah. But yeah, this girl seems so attractive, and now this man pursued her because she was just like this gleaming image of perfection. And when he saw her, he felt like I could just give my whole life for this being. Look at this physical form, you know. And then, so he arranged a date, and then when he went for that date, he knocked on the door, and this very unattractive girl opened the door, you know, skinny, pale, bags under her eyes, shaking. And he was like, what happened? Do you know, have you seen this girl, you know, who I set up a date with? She was so beautiful. And then she said, oh, yes, let me go get her real quick. And she goes in her closet and she comes out with all these, you know, bodily liquids, pus, blood, and vomit. So yes, and the guy was like, what? He's like, yeah, this plus these fluids plus me is what you were attracted to. So it shows that it's just a complete illusion that we're actually attracted to this. So when that illusion decreases, then that illusion can decrease by the process of bhakti. Like we hear that by reading in the Krishna book the activities of Krishna and the cowherd girls, which is the perfection, fully spiritualized, not tinged by materialism, example of these dealings, then we can actually get purified from this. Of course, it's also said that if you're reading the 10th canto and you're becoming agitated by these pastimes, you better go back to the first canto, start over again. Hopefully by the time you reach that part of the Bhagavatam, you'll be a little more free from from those desires. So like Radhanath Swami says, it's like, all it is it's the same thing as rubbing. Sex is just like the same thing as just rubbing two hands together. It's actually nothing to it. But because I believe, it's in the Bhagavatam where actually Lord, or the living entities after Lord Brahma created, the living entities actually didn't want to engage in this sex life because there was no attraction to it, and they didn't see the purpose behind it. But then this fluid was, injected like into all living entities, and that fluid was actually what caused that sexual attraction. And now here we are. The whole material world is now here because of that fluid. By the bhakti process, we'll get purified from this desire. But of course, on the way to getting purified from that, we have to be, before we're purified from it completely, we have to be very careful. So I remember there was, when we were doing traveling book distribution, there was a certain time when I was like, maybe I shouldn't be brahmachari. Maybe I should change ashrams. I was just feeling very inclined in that way. And then I realized, wait a minute, it was always around the same time of year. Then I realized, oh yeah, this is the time of the year that I'm in Miami. And of course, Miami, it's just, what can I say? A lot of very beautiful women. And so I was realizing that, wow, I was getting a little carried away. Like, of course, we had a lot of rules and regulations. Like, we wouldn't approach more than 5 women a day. And, some people might think that that's unfair, but sorry, that's just what we did to maintain our our brahmachari. And it was even said, like, if someone starts approaching 6 women a day, then they're going to change ashrams. And it's sometimes we would not approach any women, for like 2 months, and then you'd go to a festival, and it's like, okay. Anyway, so yeah, so when I was in Miami, I would notice, man, my lusty feelings are just rising like anything. And then I would realize, well, it's because I'm like taking in the scenery too much. And so then as soon as I stopped taking in the scenery, just looking at the men, staying focused, setting goals for myself, how many books I want to distribute, then it was like, wow, okay, now I don't feel this way. Now I'm not questioning my ashram like this. So it's a very, yeah, we have to be very, very cautious. And as one longtime brahmachari, he would say that out of sight, out of mind. And okay, if you can't keep them, if you can't, keep the, well, yeah, who practically can keep the opposite sex out of sight. It should be in a very, very cautious way. And one should know, one should know the dangers. Like they say, if even one woman comes into a room of brahmacharis, the whole mood will change. The whole consciousness of the brahmacharis, they'll start like making sure their sikas are looking okay, and making sure their dhoti pleats are like folded nicely, like this. Yeah, even into a room of this strictest brahmacharis, this subtle effect will be there. So, we will get purified from these things, and we just have to, limit our engagement with things that would invoke those lusty feelings. Yeah, limit the engagement with those things that will. And then ultimately, yeah, we can become like Haridas Thakur, who, in the dead of night, a prostitute came to him, and a woman came to Haridas Thakur, and this was none other. This was like, Maya herself, the Lord's external energy. We can just imagine how beautiful she was. And Haridas Thakur just said, hello, good evening. How are you? And then she was trying to entice him, and he was like, okay, you just wait here. I just finished my rounds. And then that's the thing. He never finished his rounds. He just kept chanting and chanting. And then she became so purified by his association that she became a devotee. So yeah, so that's the stage that we are aspiring for. So I believe Prabhupada also said one time that, he said, I can stay in the room with a bunch of naked ladies and not be disturbed. Yeah. Whereas he knew his neophyte disciples wouldn't be able to do that. Okay, so I think I'll stop there. I tried to go through 3 points, which was the dangers of sex life, like how it's spoken about in the Shastra many times. Why then why we should give up this sex life, and then some things about how to be free from it. So thank you all very much. If there are any questions or comments, they're welcome now. Okay, thank you for. I'll repeat for the online audience.
You've been talking about the challenges that many men have problems with being attracted by women, and the challenges of trying to control one's senses and so forth. But could you say something about how the process of bhakti can really, I was just thinking about this number of sannyasis in the Eastern movement, and grihastas in it. There are very, very few people who sort of successfully passed through this tightrope of being able to overcome the desire for sex. Can you say something about how the process of bhakti and the quality of the practice of bhakti can uplift one from those desires, be they male or female?
Okay, very nice question. So Prabhu is saying that, even though we hear about this, the potency of bhakti in helping to free us from this desire, when we look around, it's not like everyone is, everyone who's engaged in the bhakti process is like free from this desire, right? Like we see so many devotees in our movement that are still struggling with it. So how do we, how is it that the bhakti process is able to free us from it, and like what is required in the bhakti process to get us free from it? Is that?
Yeah, what can uplift us?
What can uplift us? Yeah.
Be male.
Yeah. Well, of course, we know higher taste. Higher taste can free us from it. Usually they say when you're in an amazing kirtan, amazing ecstatic kirtan, you're probably not thinking of sex life. So yeah, it's if we were able to do kirtan all day, engage in service all day, like immerse our minds in these powerful, all pure methods of bhakti all day, then by the power of those activities, then we would feel those desires less. But because we have to, go out and work, we have to take care of the body like this, then we're kind of opening ourselves up to this. So I would say yes, that there's no other way to get free from it, from the practice, but it depends on how sincerely we want to practice. Like this one devotee quotes that she said about 10% of the devotees in our movement are like very serious about going back to Godhead. And for the rest, the 90%, it's like, yeah, we're engaged, we're doing the activities, but like, is that intensity there? Like, how much is that intensity there? So no doubt the process is perfect, but we are imperfect. But yeah, like I've had the good fortune to travel with many very serious devotees. Well, one of who has been able to stay brahmachari, and he was like, yeah, his sadhana. It was intense, and he knew, if I don't intensely engage in this sadhana process, then sex desire is going to come up. If I don't go out and put my heart and soul into this book distribution, then sex life is going to rear its ugly head. So he knew that, yes, by properly and intensely engaging in this process, to the degree he did that, to that degree, he could overcome this desire. But yeah, sleeping too much, eating too much, it's all the whole formula is there to do it. Prabhupada's given us the whole formula. In Bhagavad Gita, don't eat too much, don't sleep too much. Prabhupada's given us, don't eat too much paneer. I know, you guys are into the cows, but even eating too much paneer can get you free from, can increase your sex desire. I think Prabhupada said like once a week we should have it. So all the the whole formula is there. Rising early, coming to the deed like that. But it's just, how much do we want to engage in that? How much do we want to really apply the process? And to that degree, and we'll get free from the sex life. And to the degree we want to just be slack, then all right. Like there was this quote I was saying that Prabhupada saying the whole material world is going on based on sex life. Like sex life is causing people to get up and go work so hard every day. But when this sex life is finished, when this desire for sex life is finished, then one will use all that energy for spiritual life. So yeah, if one uses all one's energy for spiritual life, then one will be protected. That's what Yayata Mam Prapadyante. Krishna says, as they surrender unto me, then I reward them accordingly. That's what I would say. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sometimes we put so much emphasis on avoidance. It's just the other side of attraction. And I really like the example of Prabhupada gives of Gita who was an announcer, but when he saw his desire, he prayed for Krishna to fulfill his desire, and then he was able to go forward. Prabhupada talks about, he gave examples of devotees who want to be so renounced that they wouldn't strive not to see women on the street of the district goods. So he said, you can't do that. We're not going to do them. So he gave examples of regulated sex life, or one changes ashrams, so one's in a position of strength rather than a position of weakness. Prabhupada spoke about a whole section on Gajendra and how to deal with
fighting from a point of strength.
And so I think my sense is that perhaps there's too much emphasis on the avoidance rather than the regulation, and being able to purify ourselves and to be able to rise above it and getting a high sense. And perhaps that emphasis of too much rejection causes another sort of violence in society, another sort of other issues.
Unmet needs.
And not just, it means that women are treated very badly, and just a bit abusive. So I think what I'm saying is maybe more emphasis on what Prabhupada's talking about with that Krishna and Muni, and his approach to different approaches can be taken, and perhaps acknowledging that we're not quite the pure devotees we'd like to be, but working through these things in a gradual way. That's why we're here in the chill world.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. So yeah, Prabhu is basically saying that maybe there's been too much emphasis on avoidance. And like we hear in the purport that the example of Kardama Muni, where he had the desire, so he had a slight desire for it. So he prayed to Krishna. Krishna fulfilled that desire. He kind of like worked through it. So taking advantage of these methods to kind of work through it. Yeah. Yeah, working through them in a progressive way. Anyways, thank you. Very good points. And sometimes the over stressing on renunciation can lead to problems like abuse of women or unmet needs that later lead to problems coming up somewhere. Yeah, very, very nice points. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. I guess I was just trying to give more like the hard line, highest standard. But yes. Maybe, so Tarika Prabhu would like to say something. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's not really much time, is there? So many thoughts, so little time. I very much appreciate your class, and especially you expressed the idea of giving consideration to the downsides of sex life, how sex life is a problem. This helps to slacken our attachments. It's one of the ways that we have to cultivate real detachment through devotional service, but to cultivate knowledge of how sex life is an impediment to advancement in Krishna consciousness when it's not specifically engaged in as a matter of devotional service. To have that knowledge, to remember these things is helpful to control the endless nagging of sex desire. Krishna himself does this, of course, and you find it in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asks Krishna, by what is one impelled to sinful acts even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? And Krishna says that it is because of lust, and but he describes lust in very heavy terms. He says he describes it as the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world, and elsewhere he similarly describes it in very heavy terms. So, for example, he uses the term dushparena nalena. Dushpara is, if you have the opportunity to review that word, it's an interesting word, helpful to understand. He says that lust is never satisfied and burns like fire. So it doesn't matter how much you try to satisfy it; it only increases that blazing fire of lust. Later in text 41 of this is all the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, by the way. And in text 41, he says that he describes lust as the destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So lust is a problem. It's a serious impediment to our progress in Krishna consciousness. How to control it? The material nature, or the entire material nature, is difficult to overcome. Krishna says that what is that in the 7th chapter? Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratya mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. That this, divine energy of mind, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it, easily. So it's a matter of surrender. It's more than that. It's not just a matter of surrender, but we also have to avoid offenses. We have to come to the platform of anartha nivritti. Anartha nivritti is syat, actually, when offenses cease, because you commit offenses, then the effect of your devotional service will be diminished. So, devotional service, of course, is a solution. We have from the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vasudevati Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Parayojitaha, Jana Yat Yashu Vaivaragyam Gyanam Cha Yad Ahaitukam, that by rendering service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge, detachment from the world. So those are some of the benefits of devotional service, but you commit offenses, and worst of all are offenses to the Vaishnavas, and of those offenses, the worst are offenses to the Guru, which includes neglecting the order, the instruction of the spiritual master. We surrender to Krishna, and we derive those benefits of relief from the pangs of material nature by taking shelter of Krishna. When we surrender to him, by surrendering to the spiritual master. But if we don't follow the instructions of the spiritual master, if we neglect his order, then we committed offense. You committed offense, and that undermines everything. You lose your taste for devotional service. You lose the ability to control your mind and the senses, and everything goes to pieces. You fall down. So there's many aspects that we have to give attention to. We have to become offenseless. Otherwise, you can engage in limitless devotional service, but the benefit that you will derive from that service will be minimized due to the offenses. So attention has to be given to clearing the offenses. You have to understand what constitutes an offense, and scrupulously avoid offenses. If you do commit offense, then you have to take remedial action. You have to somehow gain forgiveness for those offenses. Otherwise, the deleterious effect will remain. There is so much we could discuss on this verse and your discussion of it, but we've already run overtime, so I'm gonna stop. Thank you again, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Dorje. Okay, so I'll read Lila Kishori's message. Hare Krishna, thank you for class. Prabhu, Krishna gave us the answer, Bhagavad Gita 3:37 through 43. Krishna also said that one who practices renunciation but still ruminates about the object of lust is a pretender. Srila Prabhupada gave us the best foundation when he told us that we are not the body. We must endeavor to accept this so that we stop identifying with the desire of the body and start to control our senses. The mode of goodness is the starting point, not the final goal. Thank you. Yeah, very nice. Okay, so we'll start setting up our class. Unless Prabhus have anything. Anything more? Okay. Kanta Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
That's a very interesting protocol. It's very much also that aspect. I don't know what I just. That very question for sort of side. Yeah, like getting that as a building like a picturized world, yeah. Well, yeah. Such as started with some examples of so yeah, this phosphorus is helping renunciation ways to treat magic implication and Western society has them. But I think most of them are very well, but this is sometimes too much avoidance, and I think my experience, my personal experience, is that you have to sometimes get too much in this where it goes to the other extreme, maybe when they can't afford it, they get nothing. The relationship is not a healthy relationship, it needs to be, we need to